Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been a pharmacist for over a decade now, and let me tell you, it's not always the glamorous job people think it is. Sure, I get to wear a white coat and feel important, but most days it's just a never-ending parade of cranky customers and insurance headaches. Today was one of those days. I've been on my feet since 8 a.m. dealing with one problem after another. We had a new trainee who kept messing up prescriptions, 3 different people screamed at me about their co-pays, and someone's kid knocked over an entire display of vitamins. By the time 8:30 rolled around, I was counting down the minutes until we closed at 9. The pharmacy was packed. We had a line stretching almost to the door, and I could see at least 5 cars in the drive-thru. I was trying to work as fast as I could, but there's only so much you can do when you're short-staffed and overwhelmed. That's when this guy walked in. He took one look at the line and decided he was too good for it. Instead of waiting like a normal person, he marched right up to the counter where I was helping another customer. The man demanded that I fill his prescription immediately. I tried to explain that there was a line, but he interrupted, insisting that the pharmacy down the street had sent him here and that I had to fill it before closing. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I didn't want to get fired over some jerk who couldn't wait his turn. I told him I'd see what I could do and looked up his prescription in the system. It was just a simple refill, nothing complicated. I informed him that I had found his prescription and suggested he get in the pickup line, assuring him it should be ready by the time he reached the front. The man refused to wait in any line and demanded I give him his medication right away. Before I could argue, he stomped off to the side and stood there with his arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd personally offended him. I swear if looks could kill, I'd have dropped dead right there. Now, on a normal day, I might have just filled his prescription to get him out of my hair, but something in me snapped. Maybe it was the 10 hours of non-stop stress, or maybe it was just that I was sick of entitled people thinking they could push me around. Whatever it was, I decided this guy was going to learn a lesson. His prescription was simple, just a pre-packaged medication that needed a label and to be bagged up. It took me all of 2 minutes to get it ready. But instead of calling him over, I set it aside and went back to helping the people who had actually waited their turn. I could see him getting more and more agitated as the minutes ticked by. He kept checking his watch and sighing loudly, trying to get my attention. But I just kept working, pretending I didn't notice him. Finally, after about 15 minutes of watching him stew, I decided he'd waited long enough. I walked over to our PA system and picked up the microphone. I announced that the prescription for the gentleman in the blue shirt was ready for pickup. He practically ran to the counter and complained about the long wait. I apologized for the delay, explaining that we had been very busy that night. The man grumbled that I should have filled his prescription first as he had requested. I calmly explained our policy of filling prescriptions in the order they're received, pointing out that it wouldn't be fair to make others wait longer just because someone doesn't want to stand in line. He muttered something under his breath as he paid and snatched the bag from my hand. As he stomped towards the door, I couldn't resist one last little dig. I cheerfully wished him a wonderful evening and reminded him that next time, if he joined the line, he might get his prescription even faster. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then thought better of it and stormed out. I know it was a bit petty, but man, did it feel good. The rest of the night went by in a blur, and when we finally closed up at 9, I felt like I'd won a small victory for service workers everywhere. As I was locking up, I saw the same guy pulling into the parking lot of the 24-hour pharmacy across the street. Guess he needed something else and didn't want to wait until morning. Maybe next time he'd think twice before trying to cut in line. I'm a 25-year-old guy who loves working out. I've been hitting the gym religiously for the past 3 years, and I'm pretty proud of the results. My legs especially have become quite defined. So, on this scorching summer day, I decided to wear my favorite pair of workout shorts to the grocery store. They're not super short or anything, just above the knee, but they show off my quads nicely. I was running low on protein powder and some other supplements, so I headed to this health food store that I frequent. It's a bit pricier than regular supermarkets, but they have a great selection of fitness products. Little did I know that my quick shopping trip was about to turn into a nightmare. As I was browsing the aisles, minding my own business, I heard a shrill voice behind me. I turned around to see a middle-aged woman, her face red with anger, loudly expressing her disapproval of my attire. She was shouting about how inappropriate my shorts were and claiming there were children in the store. Confused, I looked around and saw no children, just a few adult shoppers staring at us. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that these were just regular workout shorts and I didn't see how they were inappropriate. The woman continued her tirade, insisting that my shorts were obscene and that I was practically naked. She went on about how men used to dress decently in her day and accused me of parading around like a gigolo. Getting annoyed, I told her that I was just there to do my shopping and that I wasn't breaking any laws or store policies. I asked her to leave me alone. As I tried to walk away, the woman threatened to report me to the manager and have me banned from the store. She followed me, still yelling about my indecent attire. Other customers were whispering and pointing now, making me feel embarrassed and angry, but I tried to keep my cool and ignore her. Suddenly, a man in his late 50s approached us. It turned out to be the woman's husband. He demanded to know what was happening, and his wife quickly filled him in about my supposedly disgusting shorts, insisting that he make me leave. I tried to stand my ground, telling them both that I hadn't done anything wrong and that they needed to back off and leave me alone. The husband responded aggressively, warning me not to talk to his wife that way and using a derogatory term to address me. Without warning, the man grabbed my arm, trying to forcefully turn me around. My self-defense training kicked in, and I quickly twisted out of his grip, pushing him away. He came at me again, swinging his fist towards my face. I ducked, avoiding his punch, and instinctively reacted by hitting him in the nose. There was a sickening crunch, and he stumbled backward, blood gushing from his nose. He tripped and fell hard on his back. The woman started screaming hysterically, accusing me of being a monster and claiming I had killed her husband. The man was groaning on the floor, clearly in pain but very much alive. By now, the store manager and a security guard had rushed over. The woman was demanding they call the police and have me arrested for assault. I quickly explained that the man had attacked me first and that I was just defending myself. Fortunately, several other customers backed up my story, confirming that I was the victim in this situation. The manager called an ambulance for the husband and asked to see the security camera footage. While we waited for the paramedics and police to arrive, the woman continued ranting about my shorts and blaming me for the incident. When the police arrived, they took statements from everyone and reviewed the security footage. They confirmed that I had acted in self-defense. The woman's husband was taken away in an ambulance with a broken nose, and she left with him, still glaring at me and muttering about youth these days. The store manager apologized to me for the incident and even offered me a discount on my purchases. I was shaken up but relieved that I hadn't gotten in trouble. Who would have thought that a simple pair of workout shorts could cause such chaos? I guess some people just can't mind their own business. But let me tell you, I won't let anyone push me around or shame me for my choices. And if someone puts their hands on me again, well, they might end up leaving in an ambulance too. I spent countless hours in my dad's garage, watching him tinker with engines and fix up old clunkers. By the time I was a teenager, I could change oil, replace spark plugs, and even help with basic repairs. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a passion that ran in my blood. When I told my parents I wanted to become a mechanic, they were supportive but warned me about the challenges I'd face as a woman in a male-dominated field. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to prove myself. After high school, I enrolled in a vocational program for automotive technology. I was one of only 3 women in a class of 30. Some of the guys were cool, but others made it clear they didn't think I belonged there. Their snide comments and skeptical looks only fueled my determination. I graduated top of my class and landed an entry-level job at a local garage. The first few years were tough. Customers would often ask for a real mechanic when they saw me. and some of my co-workers tried to relegate me to simple oil changes and tire rotations. But I didn't let it get to me. I worked harder, stayed later, and took on the most challenging jobs I could find. Over time, I built a reputation as one of the most skilled and reliable mechanics in town. I could handle everything from basic maintenance to complex engine rebuilds. My colleagues started coming to me for advice, and customers began requesting me by name. Now, at 31, I've been in the industry for over a decade. I've worked my ass off to get where I am, and I'm damn proud of it. I can do brakes, transmission work, engine swaps, you name it. I'm not just good at my job, I'm great at it. Recently, I started working at a new shop. The owner seemed impressed by my resume, and things were going well at first. But then, little comments started cropping up. He'd make jokes about me, playing with the big boys, or suggest that certain jobs might be too heavy for me. I brushed it off, letting my work speak for itself. One day, we were short-staffed at the front desk. The guys up there were swamped with calls and walk-ins, so I decided to lend a hand. I was waiting for a part to arrive anyway, so I figured I might as well make myself useful. I was in the middle of helping a customer when my boss stormed out of his office. He angrily told me to get back to the shop, saying that wasn't my job. His tone was sharp and several customers turned to look. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but I kept my cool. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help out since we were short-staffed, but he insisted that it wasn't my job and ordered me back to the shop. I nodded and headed back, my blood boiling. I spent the rest of the day in the shop even though I had nothing to do but wait for my part. A week went by and I was still fuming about the incident. The front desk was slammed again, and I could see the guys struggling to keep up. I was free, having just finished up an oil change, but I remembered my boss's words about my place being in the shop. Fine, that's where I'd stay. My boss came out of his office looking frazzled. He spotted me and walked over, asking if I could give the guys up front a hand since they were swamped. I looked up from the floor I was sweeping and calmly replied that my place was back in the shop and I was following orders. I told him they'd get caught up eventually. His face turned red, and I could see the vein in his forehead pulsing. He demanded to know what I was talking about, insisting that he was telling me to help out now. I reminded him that last week he had made it very clear that my place was in the shop, and I was just following his instructions. He got angrier, telling me not to get smart with him and that I should do as he says because he's the boss. I asked him which it should be, staying in the shop where my place is, or helping out front when needed, pointing out that it couldn't be both. By this point, the other mechanics had stopped working and were watching the exchange. My boss, furious now, ordered me into his office. I followed him, keeping my head high. Once inside, he slammed a write-up form on the desk and told me he was writing me up for insubordination and failing to follow orders. I challenged him, pointing out that I had followed his orders exactly by staying in the shop as he had instructed before. He argued that I knew what he meant and that I should do what he tells me to do. I questioned whether his orders only apply when it's convenient for him, noting that's not how leadership works. He warned me about my tone and threatened to fire me if I didn't sign the write-up. I looked at the form, then back at him, and refused to sign it. I told him that if he fired me for following his own instructions, I'd be happy to explain the situation to the labor board, adding that I'm sure they'd be very interested in how he treats his female employees. His face paled. He knew I had him cornered. He told me to get out of his office and get back to work. I walked out, head held high. The other mechanics patted me on the back as I passed, and I could hear them muttering about how I'd put the boss in his place. From that day on, things changed. My boss became oddly polite, almost wary of me. The other mechanics treated me with a new level of respect, and I kept doing what I'd always done, proving myself through hard work and skill. I may be a woman in a man's world, but I've earned my place here, and I'll be damned if anyone tries to tell me otherwise again. My older sister and I were inseparable despite our 4-year age gap. We shared everything: clothes, secrets, and dreams. As we matured, our differences became more apparent. She was always the perfectionist, while I took a more laid-back approach to life. Our relationship hit a rough patch when I started college. She had already graduated and landed a great job while I was still figuring out my path. Her unsolicited advice often felt like criticism, but I still loved her and wanted to maintain our bond. When she announced her pregnancy, I was thrilled to become an aunt. I helped with the nursery, attended her baby shower, and even learned how to change diapers. I thought we were in a good place. Then came that fateful night. My sister called at 11 p.m. informing me she was in labor and asking if I could watch her puppy. I agreed enthusiastically, promising to follow all her instructions. I rushed to her place, excited and nervous. Following her detailed instructions, I took care of the puppy, including using the safety harness for walks. After a few hours, I took him out for a walk. Upon returning, I was removing the harness when the puppy suddenly bolted towards the living room, where my mom was FaceTiming with my sister's boyfriend. I quickly followed and finished removing the harness. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with angry texts from my sister. She accused me of leaving the dog in his harness, calling me lazy and irresponsible. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. She then called, yelling that she couldn't believe I had failed at such a simple task. When I attempted to defend myself, she cut me off and demanded that my mom and I leave her house immediately. She hung up before I could respond. Stunned and confused, my mom and I gathered our things in silence. As we were leaving, my sister's boyfriend arrived, dismissively telling me that since they were having a kid, I didn't deserve an explanation for my sister's behavior. The next afternoon, my sister called again, apologizing and blaming stress and hormones. She invited us to meet the baby. The visit was awkward, with an undeniable tension in the room. When she asked why I had been so quiet, I explained that I was still hurt by the previous night's events. She dismissed my concerns, accusing me of trying to cast a shadow over her baby's birth. When I tried to clarify my feelings, she became defensive and told me to leave. After much reflection, I realized I wasn't wrong for wanting my feelings acknowledged. I decided to take action. I called my sister's in-laws and explained the situation, then reached out to our extended family and close friends, sharing what had happened. Many agreed that my sister had crossed a line. A week later, my sister called, demanding to know why everyone was texting her about how she had treated me. I calmly explained that I had simply told the truth. In the aftermath, I focused on my studies and building stronger relationships with people who valued and respected me. I left the door open for my sister to apologize and change her behavior, but I made the decision to put myself first. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.